I don't know if this is actually live. There's literally, maybe I'll post on my Discord, a monkey on my right on my screen from YouTube, and it says something went wrong. And it's wearing a red hat, it's purple, and it's holding a hammer with a red handle, and it's going like, and it's looking at me. Like our eyes are like literally aligned. Although I'm looking at you, but it's looking at me. So anyway, I don't know if it's actually gonna go through or not. Let's hope it does, because I think, oh god, the hair is doing the hair thing again. This is important. I also think that this is totally not my place to be speaking about these things. It is and it isn't. And so I'm going to try to be as delicate as I possibly can be. And I apologize in advance if this makes you uncomfortable. But I also hope that there's a little bit more to this than maybe a knee-jerk, like, oh, she should have just kept that to herself. Like, I believe this to be valuable information, and I don't really know how else to get it out to the right people. And I know that there's a lot of people in certain communities that care about each other. So I feel like there's an obligation to keep each other safe, and informed and on the up and up. When you find yourself in a place where maybe you have something that should be shared, I'd like to think that maybe we can put we're just so quick to judge people sometimes, especially in the day and age of the internet, and what's cringe and what's not, or what's inappropriate. I do hope that because of the gravity of the situation, and again, the care within certain communities, both of those things can team up together in the minds of the people who really this would affect the most. And that, it's not that I don't want you to form judgment on me, and you can hate me all you want at the end of this. It's not like that bad what I'm going to say, but I really do want to express, like, I am not trying to put out more than the people who already have done that service for themselves. Like, you don't want to release personal information unless the person themselves does it, right? Like, so I think I fall within that range, to be honest. I think there's nothing too crazy, but it just goes to show, like, there might be a bigger thing in play. Call it conspiracy if you want, but I've been watching things enough to know that the world isn't quite what it seems, and maybe some other people have also picked up on stuff like that. And that is the reason I am making this little video today. I really doubt it, but if you watched what I had done yesterday, I did like a 3-hour banger of a video, and I went over a lot of shit that happened within like the span of a day. And then we pulled little threads from like history, either it be recent or maybe a little bit further back. And at the end of it, I was really proud of myself. I really was. I even watched it. Not because I was proud, but I was like, okay, let me see what it is I said. Let me try to redigest it, right, from a different angle. Usually I talk out and I'm like thinking to myself, and it's not that I always record. So it was an opportunity for me to actually listen to myself, and see if I was understanding what I was saying. And, it's helpful sometimes to watch your own materials. But yeah, I did that. And then I was like, oh my God. At some point I realized I forgot to share something. And it's like, well, of course, if you have, it's 3 hours, that's a lot of fucking stuff. Of course you're going to forget something. And then I wasn't going to say anything of it I contemplated, and this is still directly what I had forgotten to include in the video. I contemplated going onto Discord and just writing out like a bigger like chunk of change as to what happened, because it was like an event in my house after my finger incident, which, by the way, can you see it? Yeah, you kind of can. But yeah, I was thinking about maybe just going on a Discord and just like adding it on there. So I was like, oh my God, I don't want to make a video about like this. It's not that it's that small, but it's not that large. And it's like maybe a 5 minutes, without an intro, outro of just like information. It's like, that's kind of silly for me to do that. YouTube, in my mind, for me, is a longer format platform. I know that doesn't make sense, seeing as their shorts are probably one of their more successful avenues. Not that I make money off of what I do anyway, but that's just how my mind works. So YouTube, I was like, it's just not. That's not going to be the place for this again. Maybe just Discord. And I didn't end up doing it. I didn't end up sharing this bit of information. And now I know why. Many of you in the Critical Role community were probably hit with a bit of a shock today, as was I, I was not aware, that Sam Riegel had cancer, underwent treatment, had a pretty major surgery in my mind. That's no small surgery. In your neck, 7-inch fucking scar, and then having had to learn how to swallow and talk again, and or all of that. And it's like, that's pretty major. That's a pretty major life-altering event. And I don't know him, but I know some people, like, that's pretty earth-shattering. So I wish him all the best in his recovery, not only physically, but mentally, because it's a mind fuck. To put it delicately, cancer's a bit of a mind fuck. And I don't necessarily think people always understand that it's not just the body that gets attacked, it's your psyche. And sometimes that's actually the thing that's the hardest to heal. And I'm not saying that's his case. I don't know him. I literally don't know anybody in the cast. I don't know. Actually, well, I know one behind the scenes person, and that was like random. I didn't even know Dre worked with them until the show, and I just happened to run into her, I guess. But yeah, so Sam announced today all of that, and I was like, holy shit, man, and kudos to everybody who knew and kept it quiet, because I know that's not the easiest thing, but you guys kept it pretty under wraps, although I have to say, in my little corner of the world, I don't get a lot of information. So maybe there was rumors and things. I don't know, but job well done if you did actually. Sorry, is this like off a little bit? Mm-hmm. Job well done to everybody who kept him safe in that way. It's a good family of people, But upon this revelation, I was like, oh, this is why this thing happens. And maybe this is why I didn't put it in my video yesterday, didn't actually post it on Discord, even though I thought it to be important, because it actually fits into this. Wouldn't you know it? Happy accidents, right? So I think we touched a bit on my water bottle and the symbology. I'd also like to point out in this moment as well, the black and white nature of it. Okay. What was I wearing yesterday? Black and white for the most part, at least on the top. So with that in mind, going back to yesterday real quick, the Aurora bit happened. We're gonna call it a bit because God, it was a fucking bit. It could not have been more of a fucking scripted bit. But that happens. And already in my mind, like, you have to think as it occurred, and then everything else that was going through my head at that time. I wasn't taking kindly to it, right? I mean, I was like, is this another death threat? Are they asking me to commit suicide? What kind of bullying is happening? That's what was jumbling, things like that, things of that nature. I walked down this hallway of my house. I forgot exactly what I was about to do, but it was like immediately after this and me getting my fingers situated. I make my way towards my bedroom, and I happen to look out as I'm walking, and I see something that I don't typically see. And in my little planter by the barn, I have there's like a cigarette holder, like one of those ones with little cutouts around like the ring of it, from my grandma, that I put water in sometimes for the creatures, or for the sake of this conversation, we'll call them critters. And so the skunks drink from it, the squirrels drink from it. I have a different bowl. I've seen my birds drink from. Like, I provide water and food, and I know you're not supposed to do that with the wildlife, but I do. I do because I care. Um, but right by that, and I do not know how this happened, but it had to have been at this point days and days, perhaps even a week or so ago. One of the pandas, I've given my raccoons how many stuffed pandas at this point? But the last one, not the most recent, is about yay high, and there's no stuffing in it, so it looks about like a lifeless corpse. And I thought, honestly, that it was gone for a good minute, but my raccoons have a way of putting their toys into places and then retrieving their toys and putting it back in my yard. It's just like, it's your toy, you do what you want, right? Like, I don't really fucking care. Um, but I noticed, again, some days to maybe even a week or so ago, 12, 13, that this sad excuse of a panda had made its way into that planter and was right by the water bowl, almost as if to place it to like drink. Like, and it was like, oh, in the moment, I was like, that's so sweet. And it just stayed there, and it's been staying there, and it hasn't moved. Granted, there is actually like a bigger panda now that I got from a Goodwill actually in my yard, but that's been stationed for some time in the grass. And I just take it that they prefer to play with that one if they play with anything at all, just because it's a little bit more, fluffy and big and sizable to the raccoon. So I'm like, oh, they just forgot about it or whatever. They just don't really give a shit anymore. But I'm walking down the hall. The panda's still there. It's right by the water. And I see another black and white thing. I've had a lot of skunks come around this year, like a lot of skunks come around this year. And it's been so fun for me because I think they're so fucking cute. And if you happen to catch them when they're really young, and they're still like with their mother, you'll typically find like a good couple of them, like a score of skunks. And like they're so incy bitsy. And it's just like my favorite. It's like this is skunk season in the Elizabethan household, and I am a happy camper. So I've been feeding them. They've been getting their water in. It's been a great time. But I see something I've never seen before, and it appears from a distance. I think I actually was wearing my glasses, so maybe that's why I was able to clock it at all, because blind. A skunk appears to be smaller, and it appears to be laying down. I've never, ever, ever seen a skunk prone and flat. And it was right by the panda, and it went from me thinking the panda was cute to, oh my God, does everything, like all of the animals, the bigger sort that come across this panda, think it's like a dead creature? And did the skunk think that, if it was sick or something, it should just sit by the other sick skunk and just die. And so I'm under the impression, I'm like, there's a dead skunk next to, I guess, a dead panda. And again, the Aurora bit just happened. All of the other weird shit was going through my head. And now I'm seeing, in my mind, like potentially a dead skunk. And I'm like maybe it's just really sick. And then I'm like, how do I get a hold of animal control? Like, all, I'm just like a million miles per minute. I'm like, what do I need to do? So first things first, I need to figure out if it's okay or what the fuck is happening, right? Even the idea of rabies crosses my mind. Like, it's just the whole schematic of possibilities just like floods my zone. I open a door more in the hallway because that's where I'm walking down when I'm seeing this. But where the skunk is located is more so across, like, from my bedroom. I open the door and the skunk lifts its head and like starts like looking around, like not like energetic and like trying to like clock everything, but it's just like it's completely aware. And it just, in my mind at that moment, I'm like, oh my God, the poor thing was probably just tired, and was just like chilling with the other black and white thing because likeness of color or some, I don't know, some like weird animal logic. I was like, oh, but I'll show you a picture just so you understand what I saw. And then I got a little bit of a better angle. So this is what I kind of walked up to. So you see the panda right here. It's a little bit further back. You see the water bowl, and then this is the skunk. And it's just completely, can I lower the brightness? Does that help? Not really. Okay, well, I'm trying my best here. So that's what I'm seeing, right? And yeah, like I've like never seen the skunks do that. So I was a little bit worried. And here's the better angle from across the bedroom. And at this point, I had already opened up the door from the hallway, realized it was okay enough, right? Closed that door and then continued on to the bedroom to do whatever it was. I forgot at this point that I was trying to do, but I did happen to capture just what it looked like when it put its head back down. And so that's what it's doing. You got a little bit of a better angle too on the panda skin, as it were. But yeah, like it was not fun, right? Like that's not a fun thing. It was a little bit scary. Now, some of you might be aware that Sam, at this point, going back to the critical role aspect of this, blown himself up in quite a nuclear fashion. We even touched on that yesterday, by the way, I realized. And I was like, there's so many beats of this that are connecting. So I was going to look up Sam's character, his new one that he's introduced for himself. But before I get to that, I want to point out, I didn't know his middle name. First of all, he has two, I guess, like I do, Brent Oscar. And I'm pretty sure I worked with a Brett when I was working at ABC. So back to the production company, I also mentioned yesterday when we were talking like the Bluebird bit, but also Oscar was, so yeah. Kind of got all of that up in the head cloud space, but didn't quite understand, I guess, the bigger connection, so to speak. So I just wanted to share all of that because I think it's a little bit like crazy. Why I'm getting this communication, I don't know. But yeah, then because I was just kind of like, what the fuck, when I found out his name was Oscar. He's born in Washington, D.C., so that's one thing. But he also plays Donatello. He's a voice actor. If you don't know who Sam Riegel is, he needs no introduction. Look him up. Yeah. He plays Donatello in the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series and Phoenix right in the Ace Attorney games. And I pointed out yesterday my Fates or Muses tattoo, and I kind of tried to show you a little bit of what it looks like, but I'm going to show you it again because I have them holding a string and one of them's holding a scissors, and that's supposed to be your fate line or your lifeline. You know, it's depending on how you want to read it, it could be potentially a really great thing that you could get to cut your fate, like yourself from a fate destined, and create one for yourself instead, right? Become a freer version, away from like, you know, the crazy Starlink AI, like pre-programmed set of life choices and courses. That's, you know, you're just living through, you're just a passenger princess in your life, essentially, right? You cut the fate's cord and you learn to drive. So, you know, there's a positive aspect, but I also understand that it also could imply death. So around these characters, I have a phoenix, actually. Can you see it? So who did this one versus who did this one is also a little bit interesting, and I feel worth the talking to, or about rather, because the fates were done by somebody named John Devilman. Some of you might be familiar, some of you might not. But what I find very interesting about this character in particular is, one, the devil stuff's been coming up a lot lately, hasn't it? But two, I'm pretty sure he played a merman in a like hair ad. And why that's really interesting, especially in this moment, is that there's like a whole like Kraken week. Oh, I pulled a Kraken yesterday, didn't I? In like my random polls. Now I'm putting that together. Cool. So I only knew about Kraken week because somebody came up. I could not possibly tell you her name. I'm so sorry. It's not that I would forget your name if I really knew it. It's just like I'm very new to this person's content, and I've only watched like maybe 2 videos of theirs at all. They get randomly suggested sometimes, and I'm like, oh, interesting. So I click it. Like everybody else, that's kind of how things work in my life. The shorter green hair. But she told me about Kraken Week through a video, and then she made like a mer race, or like she was talking about like making mer people. And making them a playable race in D&D. I am so blown out. Jesus Christ. Hello? Okay. Well, we're just going to have to live with it, I guess. But yeah, he played like a merman in a commercial. And that was like the first time when it had come up in my feed some months or maybe even years at this point back. I was like, that's the first time I've seen this man in like years and years and years. But it was random, you know what I mean? It was like super random. And the fact that all of this is kind of falling together during Kraken Week, and it's just crazy stuff. Somebody's like pinging me on the green hair too. That is interesting because Dre has green hair. And it's a very different shade of green, mind you. Her hair, Dre's hair. She has like a neon green, I think. It was really dark out when I saw her. But I think she's like switched from her dark green to a neon green at this point. The other girl I'm mentioning, the video that I'd watched, is more of like almost like a seafoam mint, maybe a little bit more of a opacity on the green to that. But yeah, if you're in like the Dungeons and Dragons community and you pay attention to content creators, you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. So I'm not worried about it. Anyway, so all of that, but back to the color theory. Oh, it would be 547, wouldn't it? What are we at? 245, 246. Oh, 245, 24:25 was what the time so far was. Let me see something really quickly. How do I pull up Sam Riegel? I'm just going to say new character because I just want to prove a point. it's the black and white. It's the black and white again. So, having the panda and then the panda being deflated like completely of its stuffing. So it's just a skin, lifeless skin. And then the skunk scaring the bejesus out of me and me thinking it was dead. To, this little, number to the Adidas fit I had on. And then, my tattoos are not as vivid as like, a black and white like this, but like literally all my tattoos are black and white. The only color, I swear to God, the only color I have, and this was Bob's suggestion, was in Cerberus's eyeballs. And Bob was like, we should probably put yellow or something in there so it doesn't bleed into the other aspects of the tattoo. And I was like, okay. So that's what we did. But speaking of Bob, my tattoo artist, John Deviled Man did the fates. Bob free-handed the phoenix. Now this gets really interesting when you think about my 304 lore. As 304 lore would have it, somebody's reminding me of something else. Okay. So I say somebody, it's not even like I get a voice. It's just like a thought passes like through my mind. When I was at 304, they gave me an impression that my horse Bob was really mad at me. My dead horse Bob was really mad at me. It was very bizarre. And that escalated into something of Bob Marley, the deceased, Rastafarian, like very famous Buffalo soldier. Love that song, by the way. I have like a whole Buffalo thing. Hello, Purple Monkey. And there's the color purple involved in that, but that's another story for another day. But Bob Marley, almost in like a Billy and Mandy fashion, was the Grim Reaper. And I think the idea was almost like I touched on it yesterday, like they were the ones who were supposed to call the shots of who comes and who goes. And then I might have fucked things up by, getting into the business of doing stuff like that. And so Bob Marley was also very unhappy with me. But what the little crosswire reminded me of is that this is the word I can't say. Marlboro came up yesterday because when we were looking up Kyrie Jackson, I think that was like where he was born. And then I was like, oh, I'll show you guys my newest cigarette box. I think I even mentioned my grandma died from lung cancer because she smoked cigarettes. So cancer was already on our minds at that point in a way. But Marlboro, you know what I mean? Also, I don't know what side, but Sam has a new scar, and that's a lion. I have a ram. So you're like, Mar backwards would be ram, Marram. So there's that. And yeah, there's still more. I've connected 5:51 to 5:52. I watched the time change. I kind of gave myself another little bit of okay, so I've covered two things. We have two more. About 30 minutes. So let's fast forward backwards to Kalos, which again, seeing as, this idea of death and destruction and ruining people's lives and kind of directing how things are going to happen and play out for people. I had a conversation at Kalos with Danette, I'd mentioned, that involved espionage school. And she's the one who brought this up. I had been talking to her a lot about what was happening to me. And one of her favorite questions, it's always like one of her go-tos, is like, well, do you know anybody else who's going through this? Like, do you talk to anybody else about it? And it's like, no. I'm also a bit of an oversharer, but I feel like that's kind of necessary for the moment. You should have known me like fucking a decade ago, dude. Like, I am such a quiet, like, keep to myself person. And due to this situation and how much my own experience has escalated it's almost made me desperate to share, because I'm like, I've never heard about anything like what's happened to me happening. And like, it's not that I think everybody as shielded or guarded, put in like a little bit of a hamster ball of a life to not know anything as I have been. But it's like, God forbid there are other people like that. I cannot stand to be anything like the people around me who never helped me out and never said a goddamn thing. Like, that kills me. So I share in hopes that I can reach them. I share in hopes I can at least try to open up, the firewall, because clearly, like, things like this are meant to be more hush hush, right? Like, it's either like bad manners to speak on it or taboo, or, and I'm like, no, we can't live in silence like this, guys. It's not helping. We can't be providing cover for these fucking assholes. So I share a lot. But so I was sharing with Danette, I was talking to her. We had a good while of a conversation, but at some point she's like, she had mentioned espionage school. I was like, I didn't know. Oh, I think I had said something about the training bit and like how, maybe there's this idea of like, I'm getting trained or something. Or maybe I had mentioned, there's another thing I had said where it's like, I can understand somebody maybe going through what I'm going through if they're a spy or something, right? Or like a politician that people want to influence or get back at for bad, whatever. Like, I would understand what's happening to me happening to them. Not that I would want that for them, but like, I would get that makes more sense, right? Like, the A plus B equals C there. Not alternative C of like, oh, we're just going to fuck over this random girl who has no resources and literally, is just completely like a broken person. Like, that to me is just like demented, right? Like, I don't understand why I get fucked over so much. I really fucking don't. If anybody would want to explain it to me, I'm all ears. I literally can't figure it out for the life of me. The best I have is that they went into like my coding, and then they figured out that I would at some point be calling them out on their shit. And so for like a really long time now, almost I could say all of my life even, they've been trying to make it so I didn't get to this point, right, where I'm a bit of a firecracker and I'm just like, I'm just gonna pop off, right? Probably didn't want that. Fucks with the Common Core AI bit, I'm sure, knowing all of this and it being out in the open as it is. If they listen, right? I don't think everybody is as open to really acknowledging reality as it is, as opposed to how it's been made to be perceived. Because that's a bit of a comfort zone, and to live in comfort is a lot nicer than to live in truth, now isn't it? Anyway, so she mentioned espionage school, and she says that she ended up actually working with somebody who had gone to school for espionage, and I'm like, what the fuck? 'Cause I didn't know these places, I didn't know these institutions even existed. She's like, yeah, now she works at Disney. I'm like, interesting. And then Danette's like, yeah, she's like actually a really well-known comedian. And I don't know exactly how the conversation happened between her and this person, but she's like, yeah, we got to talking. And then she said why she quit espionage was because everybody she knew was getting killed. Danette was saying all of this. Danette had brought this up yesterday. Or not yesterday, when, 2-3 days ago, Saturday. And just like the most random thing, like it's so hard to get anything out of this woman. So like her just saying all of this is like, what the fuck? Like, and you never bothered to mention any of this before, all this interesting little tiddly bits. But it gets weirder because like, yeah, she stopped because all the people she knew were getting killed, and she would often speak at their funerals because, she knew them well enough, and they found her very funny. She knew them well enough to know that they wouldn't want people to be very sad if they passed, and so she I guess would always go into these funerals very, very lighthearted, I'm sure, but like in a comedic tone. And so people would start hiring her to speak at people's funerals. And so now she works at Disney, and then she's like a comedian on the side. I was like, what the hell? And we're gonna touch back on this, but I try to get more out of her. I was like, if you don't mind, may I ask or inquire? And totally fine if you don't want to share. Made sure that was a part of the exchange. I was like, do you mind sharing her name? And she couldn't quite think of it, which is a little bit weird, especially if they're a famous comedian. But she said Jessica, and I was like, okay. And then she told me I could ping her on Monday and she could figure out the last name, but I'm not going to do that. It's not that I care that much. I was just curious. But today when I was opening up Twitch, I had watched, or I decided to watch Chilled Chaos, which is a bigger streamer on the platform. You might be familiar with him. And the moment I opened it up, he was talking about how he was a passenger princess and he laughed sometimes, or he thought it was funny when Jessica was driving. So Jessica is now being brought up again because she won't honk in the moment of something happening. She'll honk like a little bit afterwards because she's so enraged. And she just like goes full throttle, like after the fact of an incident, honk, like to like express herself. And when I'm hearing this, it's not so much the Jessica Connect thing that really stuck out to me, but it was like this idea of I'm going to let a lot out and I'm going to be very loud about it, right? Because that's kind of how I relate in my own way. But then after the fact, obviously the Jessica thing. But here, Critical Role fans, if you stuck around long enough, 106, by the way. Oh, did you know Sam Riegel's birthday is the 9th of October? So flip that 6 for me. There you go. By the way, I did not know a lot of this stuff about Sam Riegel until I literally was just going to look him up to try to find his new character model. And then I just like saw a lot of stuff that kind of relates. And I was like, oh, so I'm not like super mega fan. I know I'm a stalker. No. Like, no. I happened to Google the guy for a very specific reason, and a lot of other shit came out. But Critical Role fans, get this. Remember how I told you how I thought Matt's fit? Maybe I can pull it. Matt Mercer live show images. Of course you wouldn't show me. Do I have to type Greek? You would think it would just like pull up images from the most recent live show. Fucking guess not. Okay, it's being a little bit difficult right now in the sense of like it's just not giving me what I want to show you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework, but just a little bit. If you look up, after I'll show you what I mean, and then you make your own decisions. If you look up the live show at the Greek and you look at Matt Mercer's fit, you'll see that he's wearing a very certain aesthetic look that is very different from his typical fashion, and he's wearing a good bit of makeup, right? Now, when I had seen this, I had likened it to, where is it? Where is it? Is it a tab that I have open? Yep. I likened it to the guy in Monoskin, the loneliest video. And look, like, it's a funeral. Oh, you're not going to autoplay, you son of a fucking. It's like, that's where it starts. And they're putting the flowers down. That lady has short blonde hair. My grandma had short blonde hair. If you want to bring it all the way back to the Cancer. And, you know, I'll also note that Danette bought flowers when I was with her, and she had like the hangers in her back seat as well. So this idea again of like a predestined or, you know, scripted death. And it's just like so many things kind of came together today in such a way that I was like, okay, now I have the video. Now I can talk about the skunk. Maybe it was an intended error or oversight, although it's really hard to ever say that about, you know, lacking, you know, information and intelligence. Like, you always want to get it all out at once, but I guess there is a little bit of strategy sometimes in withholding and all of that. But to me, I'm just like, the situation is just so dire. I'm like, for lack of a better term, like diarrhea mouth. Like, you're just gonna get everything that I've got that I can fucking remember, and, you know, my throat's starting to hurt a little bit. You know what? Another thing too, I realized, because I did a video that was like literally 3 hours, is like my voice at the end like cracked. And I'm realizing now that it was sore, and that probably happened in like almost like a sympathetic way towards Sam and his, I believe it's like tonsil, some type of tonsil cancer. And like, even when you're watching the clip of him today, kind of sharing this news with all of us, he didn't have to do that, but, you know, thank you for doing that with us. He's like, I'm just talking like so much, you know. He's like, and it was a bit of a struggle probably to just like get so much out there, not only because it might hurt to speak, right? Oh, is this why we had the whole aerial bit yesterday? And Donald Trump's character, Donald Duck's character, has like Ursula octopus tendrils too. Ooh, ooh. You try to steal our mermaid's voice? I mean, minotaurs. Huh. Wouldn't you know? See, sometimes like I'll talk to myself, and then like I'll like make discoveries. So it's just like I'm bouncing off my own walls here. But yes, now that I think of it, the aerial stuff came up, I think, firstly during when I was like watching Ray play Kingdom Hearts, right? But then it resurfaced randomly, by the way, out of fucking nowhere. Like, you'll see my reaction. I'm like, why the fuck is Ariel in my Hercules book? And there was other like Disney stills and stuff, but it was just very random in my mind, at least. But maybe not so much anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wanted to point out that little Matt bit as well, because this idea that he dressed up like a person who I clocked for being in a music video, and the music video is literally about a funeral, and maybe this idea like it's really scary to have cancer. Maybe there was a possibility, maybe not in the data, but in the mind, like, you know, you start to worry about your mortality. And, you know, again, this concept of sometimes it's not like the physical damage that does the most. Sometimes it's just how it fucks you up in the brain. You know, intrusive thoughts, like they'll really push that, especially in a moment of severe crisis. Like they will dig their heels into it, you know, they'll make it right for all it's worth. Like they will. Whew. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share. Again, I do apologize if some people are like, this isn't your place. I beg to differ, but I don't beg. But I do want to also be very sympathetic to, you know, the situation and all of those involved, specifically Sam and his family, right? His kid, I mean, he has young kids. Fucking Jesus Christ. Jesus fucking Christ, man. You know what I thought to myself? And like, this is so twisted. Because they have like the new Beacon like ad, or I don't know, like promo. We'll call it like a promotion. When you watch it, and you'll see this on the next Critical Role during that like halftime break, probably. I think is when they usually play it. You'll see his family sitting at the couch. I believe it's his family. And they're sitting with a different dad. It's not Sam. And it's just like, oh no. Was that like the artistic way of saying, you son of a bitch? You know what I mean? Like sticking it to the man and like kind of trying to like vent out like how they felt about the situation, but not saying, you know, exclusively in detail like what was happening in the background. But I don't know, but that's kind of how I thought about it once it like kind of registered with me a little bit more. Like there's just a lot. It's just a lot. But yeah, that's it. That's it for our video. This one's a 47-minute banger. Thank God it's shorter than yesterday's, but happy to get all that off my chest. Stay safe, stay kind, and stay loving. We'll get through this, I guess. I mean, we've gotten through it so far. So human life is perpetual suffering, and then we call it survival, and then we try to like lift ourselves up and like feel proud of it. And it's like, we're just made to suffer though. Like that's so not chill or fun. But yeah, you know, I think life is about finding things that you enjoy and, you know, making the most of your time doing those types of activities, finding communities in which you feel safe and comfortable and you can be yourself, and so on and so on and so on. You don't need a life lesson, but, you know, for all that is happening, I'll show you the fucking monkey just real quick before I go. See him? Something went wrong. No shit. There are things that can go right. And I think it's really up to you as a person to take the time to learn what those things are that, you know, you can either find that gravitate towards you that make you happy, or you can find a way to gravitate towards them and become more involved. And hopefully that it's never going to make up for the situation that we live in. It's never going to make up for the human condition, but it will make this life a little bit more worth your time. And I do feel like Sam has found that. I think he's found a family outside of his family. It was a blessed situation to, you know, be in. And like, it's not like he's, you know, like he's fine and all, but it's like, he did it right. He's living life right. And it sucks to think that those are the people you want to hurt, are people who, despite everything, like they're making it work right for them. It pisses me off, man. It pisses me off. Anyway, have a great, what is it, Monday? Is it Monday now? Yeah, Monday. Have a great week, gamers. I will see you, I don't know when, another time, another place, another day, another rants, probably. Probably nothing good, but we'll be there. Bye.